Bluegrass is an American art form that started when Bill Monroe's band added Earl Scruggs' banjo. Earl Scruggs changed the way banjo was played. He found this way to rotate his three fingers, boop, 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 like this, over the five strings to make an effortless, very fast cascading sound. And it blew everybody's mind. Nobody had ever heard anything like it before. And Bill Monroe was on a radio show that was heard all over the country called the Grand Ole Opry. So when Earl Scruggs got on stage with Bill Monroe, the place went wild. This was in the 1940s.
Jazz je danas toliko prešao u sferu visoke kulture da će malo tko imati asocijaciju na njegove narodne korijene. Recimo na banjo, taj instrument koji se danas najčešće veže uz bijelačku folk i bluegrass muziku i ruralnu scenografiju. Međutim, banjo je instrument afričkog porijekla i afroameričke tradicije. Kao takav, on je važan dio ne samo kulture gradova kao što je New Orleans tijekom 19. stoljeća, iz kojeg će džez izrasti, nego i ranih džez sastava, pa ga tako možemo čuti u jednom od najvažnijih bendova u povijesti tog žanra, Hot Five-u Louisa Armstronga, u kojem je banjo i gitaru svirao Johnny St. Cyr. U novije doba, jedan od ključnih momenata koje je taj instrument vezao za kontekst bijelačkih zabiti je film Oslobađanje Johna Boormana iz 1972. i njegova glasovita scena dvoboja između dječaka koji svira banjo i gradskog došljaka na gitari. Upravo je ta scena i u njoj sadržana pjesma Dueling Banjos potaknula mladog Bélu Flecka da primi taj instrument koji se u doba rocka i fusiona morao činiti pomalo u raskoraku s modernošću. Međutim, Flecku to nije umanjilo vrijednost njegovog muzičkog druga. Što više potaknut glazbom koja je pomicala granice u to doba, prije svega Chickom Coreaom i njegovim Return to Forever, koje je čuo sa 17 godina, Fleck je odlučio privesti banjo suvremenosti i rastvoriti njegove mogućnosti u smjeru koji su mu pokazali velikani džeza. Ipak, po putu je naišao i na inovatore unutar bluegrassa, kao svoje primarne tradicije, kao što su njegov učitelj Tony Triška, zatim Tony Rice, Sam Bush ili David Grisman, a vlastite će inovacije razvijati u danas kultnom bendu primjerenog naziva Newgrass Revival. U džezu se pak nije mogao formalno školovati. Na Berkeleyu ga nitko nije imao poučavati na njegovom instrumentu, pa uzima privatne lekcije i gradi vlastiti vokabular. Krajem 80-ih s Victorom Wootenom, njegovim bratom Rayom, poznatim i kao Future Man, te Howardom Levyem, pokreće kvartet Béla Fleck and the Flecktones, s kojim će se probiti u sam vrh žanra. Između ostalog osvojit će više Grammy-a, uključujući i 2 za najbolji album suvremenog džeza 2000. za Outbound i 2006. za The Hidden Land. U Čakovec Fleck dolazi sredinom veljače, također na krilima uspjeha na ovogodišnjoj dodjeli tih glasovitih nagrada. Album As We Speak, snime sa Zakirom Husainom i Edgarom Mayerom, dobio je Grammy-a za najbolji instrumentalni album suvremene glazbe, dok je snimka kompozicije Pašto proglašena najboljom izvedbom globalne glazbe. Idealan trenutak za koncert i razgovor.
Adekvatno je u stvari reći da gajimo kulturu dobre glazbe u gradu Čakovcu. Činjenica kaže da smo već imali plesne jazz orkestre prije Drugog svjetskog rata koji su bili formirani aktualni u gradu Čakovcu, ali naravno 80. 90. 2000. sva velika imena džeza u Hrvatskoj su u Čakovcu nastupila i mislim da je sad adekvatno vrijeme da odemo korak dalje u tom kontekstu i da postanemo domaćini za svjetska jazz imena. I u tom kontekstu evo nas tu sad Béla Fleck u gradu Čakovcu.
I'm the banjo player that often gets to play with jazz musicians, and they cut me a little slack about the stuff that I don't know, just because I'm bringing something new to them. And part of what I bring them is bluegrass. I mean, I think Chick Corea was partly interested in me because I was showing him something he didn't really know anything about. And I was interested in him because he was showing me things I didn't know anything about. He was teaching me about harmony, rhythm, space, so much that I learned from him. I pushed it to the next place, which was really learning jazz in a more formal way, like learning the scale, learning all up and down the neck, which hadn't really been done on this 5-string banjo before. It was a new thing. It gave me new abilities that people hadn't had before, and I could play classical music or jazz. At least I could try. It didn't make me a jazz musician completely or a classical musician completely, but it gave me the opportunity to explore those musics and bring it into my own music, which was more of a mongrel, mixed up kind of music with lots of different ideas in it. But as the years have gone by, I got to play with a lot of great jazz musicians, such as Chick Corea when I played in Zagreb, or Branford Marsalis, or McCoy Tyner, so many great musicians. And Jean-Luc Ponty, yeah, that's right. Stanley Clarke, there's so many people. Sometimes it's really frustrating playing the banjo and dealing with people's preconceptions about what it is and where it comes from. Most people think the banjo comes from the white South, North Carolina, Tennessee, and is a white Southern instrument, but it comes from Africa. And when the banjo came to the Americas, it was the instrument everybody played all kinds of music on. After a while, and early jazz, it was a big part of early jazz. There were people playing classical music on the banjo. There were banjo orchestras in the late 1800s. All of that kind of got swept away and went away, leaving only these, there were also black string bands playing country music, and not bluegrass, but pre-bluegrass, black groups playing that music too. They didn't get recorded very much. The white ones did. And then years later, we have things like the Beverly Hillbillies, we have Deliverance, we have the Hee Haw TV show, we have Bonnie and Clyde, which all stamp the banjo as a white Southern, almost a racist instrument in some cases, when it is an African instrument. And so for me, when I try to do all of this stuff, the more I learn about the banjo's history, the more I feel like I'm trying to just reestablish what the banjo is, which is a legitimate instrument that can play all kinds of music that came from Africa, that embraces bluegrass, that embraces jazz, and you can do anything on it. The album, My Bluegrass Heart, is dedicated to two people. One is Tony Rice, who was one of the greatest guitar players in bluegrass music, who expanded the guitar's role, moved it out of bluegrass and took a lot of things from jazz and all kinds of music and brought it into bluegrass, but in a way that respected the tradition of bluegrass. It had the rhythm, it had the tone, it had the sound, it had an old sound, and it sounded like it was ancient and perfect. And he was the greatest rhythm player. The way he played his rhythm behind the other musicians made them fly. And when Tony Rice played with you, you could play better than you could play any other time, like a great drummer can in a jazz group. That's what Tony Rice was. And he died just during the COVID years. Chick Corea had an album called My Spanish Heart. And Chick Corea's music always has a Spanish overtone. But Chick Corea is not from Spain. He's an Italian from Massachusetts. And yet it's so central to his identity that the Latinos embrace him and they consider him part of their world because he's so good at it. He's so special and unique. So it dawned on me that I'm from New York City. I'm not from the Southern bluegrass world, and I've wormed my way in there and found my home in that scene. But I'm also not one of them. And so I thought, but I love bluegrass and they've accepted me, and I do it my way, just the way Chick did his Spanish music his way. So that was the reason, and I asked him how he felt about me using that title. I said, I think I'm going to call my next album My Bluegrass Heart. Do you have any problem with that? How do you feel about it? He said, go for it, fine with him. He said, I want to hear it, and I'm just sad that he didn't get to hear it before he passed. I have to tell you, Chick Corea and I made one more record that's going to be coming out in the next couple of months. It's a very special new duo record. Some live, some in the studio during COVID. It's called Remembrance. interesting thing, if we're talking from the jazz perspective, I played with a number of great pianists now. I've done a lot of work with Marcus Roberts. And Marcus Roberts says, well, here's how you comp. If you're going to play in this register that the banjo is in, I'm going to get out of your way. I'm going to be up here, I'm going to be down here, I'm going to play chords, I'm going to leave space. This is how you do it. He has, it's like this. Chick has a completely different way of doing it. He's like, if I start doing a lot, he goes, I'm getting in there too. And he starts doing a lot with me. So he's like a child in a sandbox. And so it was a whole different set of rules musically, which was basically there are no rules. He could do whatever he wanted, I could do whatever I wanted. Even if it was his solo, if I wanted to jump in and kick at him, he was fine with it. If I was playing and he got excited, he would just start swarming. So you have to be strong. John Patitucci said that about Chick. You have to be strong because he can overwhelm you with ideas and energy, and you think you're soloing, but all of a sudden you're the background to him, you know. But it's such a pure musical energy that it's just one of the greatest joys for me. I think about two masters that I've gotten to play with. Chick Corea is an effortless master of his technique and his ideas. The other one is Zakir Hussain, who just has no problems playing music. It's like nothing to him to do the most ridiculous stuff, and he's always working at maybe 55% of his ability. Like there's another level he could go to, but he doesn't ever have to go there because nobody else can play that way. He's that good. They're both genius musicians, and I'm very thrilled to have had a great opportunity to learn from them. My favorite bass players to play with are Edgar Meyer and Victor Wooten. We really connect. Like Victor and I, we can connect rhythmically on the little bitty in-between notes in a way that's very unusual. He feels the inside pulse as well as the big pulse. So when I play my whole deal, he understands everything I'm doing intuitively. And the first time we played together, it was magic. We sat and played together for a couple of hours, and I wasn't looking to start the Fleck tones or anything like that, but it was like I could play the way I wanted to play in a more jazz context. And when his brother, Future Man, came, all of a sudden things got really easy. All of a sudden everything I was trying to do sounded good. When I tried it with other musicians, it sounded, you know, like a hack guy trying to play jazz, but all of a sudden they made it sound legitimate. And I learned that the setting is as important as what I'm doing. If I'm not playing with people that know how to make the sounds, it's just going to be sticking it in there. You know, it doesn't get real. With those guys, it made everything sound really good. Edgar is a classical bassist, as well as he wouldn't even call himself a jazz bass player, but he's very, very able. He's just made a record with Christian McBride, a duet record that's fantastic. But he's just a very wide-ranging musician. He does a lot of stuff with Yo-Yo Ma, people like that. He does his own concertos. He's a great composer. But when we get together, we collaborate on music, and we've had some really good results. And there's Victor. Then I got to do this one project with Stanley Clarke and Jean-Luc Ponty, which was very satisfying because I loved Return to Forever so much, and I love Stanley's upright playing. So, I mean, his electric is great too, but the upright is very unique and very musical and really fun. So we had a really good time. But I think I mostly connect with percussion and drummers. Those are the folks that understand me and I understand. When I'm with a drummer that's listening, we connect. So I've always had an easy time with them. But you know, you develop a relationship with the pianists, develop a relationship with certain saxophone players, and you know, and percussionists and bassists. each relationship needs to happen with every musician in the group. It's not just like the group and you have to have a reach out to each person in the group to have a great band. Everyone has to have a relationship with each other. The lines have to go in every direction. That's what makes a great band. If anybody in the band could play as a duo, any two people, you've got a band that's really listening and really focused on each other.
We are primarily basing our music from the world of bluegrass, more traditional American folk music, but because of all of our wide influences in Béla Fleck's music, proves that, you know, it's influenced by all kinds of outside sources like jazz or Indian music or Asian music, and all of us in this band are also fans and are influenced by other things, not just bluegrass. So we get a chance to sort of create a new fusion of ideas, you know, through the filter of traditional music. So it sort of sounds like bluegrass. It can be interpreted as bluegrass, but it's not really traditional bluegrass. It's more fusion, more progressive. And again, just that improvisational conversation is really enjoyable. So I've always been a fan, again, of the energy and the improvisational aspect of bluegrass and traditional American music, and I find that also in gypsy swing, the songs of Django Reinhardt, Stefan Grappelli, the Hot Club, and I've spent a lot of time in my own playing studying those songs and that kind of playing. I'm a big fan of a lot of the bands from Europe and players from Europe over the last 25 or 30 years, and really enjoy that style and find kind of a synergy as far as the energy and the excitement, the improvisational conversations that happen in gypsy swing as well as bluegrass. Those songs are relatively simplistic, but through the energy and through all the improvisational freedom that we have, you know, we can add our own complexities as it's fun to do that, because again the basic form again is more open, more simplistic. Béla Fleck is always been one of my favorite musicians. As I've gotten to know him more, I have this deeper respect for him as a composer. He's a wonderful songwriter and has a wonderful sense of song construction, symmetry, melody. You know, so you see him play and it's complex and fast and fancy, but his musical understanding is so strong and deep. That's, for me as a musician, that's what I love the most about it. And again, kind of like within that bluegrass to improvisational experience, even when we're playing a Béla Fleck song, there is a strong sense of melody and form that allows us to, within that, you know, improvise, and we listen to each other. Improvisation is really about conversation, and in this kind of music, it's very free. So within that structure, you know, he may play you know, kind of a different little harmonic interpretation of something, you know, that was another interpretation the night before. So we're always listening based on this form. And so my communication with Béla, you know, has to do with a lot of that kind of thing. You know, just consistent listening. Things are always different, which I love. Sometimes our grooves, you know, just on the rhythmic front, because again, in bluegrass, you're playing rhythm as much as you are soloing. And so we're always conscious of the energy of the music, you know. So we're really trying to tightly listen and form agreement with each other.
youngest person in this band. And so, I mean, from the time I first started playing music, of course, you know who Béla Fleck is. You know, he was not only making his own solo albums, but he was featured on albums by people like Tony Rice, who I was a huge fan of. So I probably first heard Béla's banjo playing on a Tony Rice album called Cold on the Shoulder, which was one of my favorites as a kid. And then, of course, you know, as time goes on, you sort of get to meet your heroes. So I was lucky enough to meet him at a pretty early age, and when I was a teenager. And then later went on to work with him in the studio on one of my solo albums. So I normally tour as a solo artist, and so I made a record called Weighted Mind that Béla produced. And so that was really our first time really getting to work together on something, but it was more as me, the artist, him as the producer. And then, you know, a few years later, he makes the My Bluegrass Heart album, which I was really thrilled to get to be a collaborator on with him on that record. And then, of course, being part of this band is really amazing. You know, anytime you get the opportunity to work with a hero, it's a really special thing. But I think Béla is one of those unique individuals in that he's so driven at what he does, and you know, he's always striving to be the best he can. A lot of people, you know, they have moments they get excited earlier in their career and they work hard, and then they, you know, kind of find their lane and they do their thing for a long time. Béla's one of those people that he's always pushing the limits of the instrument. He's always striving to find a new way to use the banjo. I mean, we just recorded Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue and made a bluegrass version of it. So, you know, I'm always inspired by his work ethic, and you know, how much he still loves music after all this time. He's one of those guys that's a great band leader, great collaborator, great composer. You know, I have a lot of admiration and respect for him. Yeah, I've always been an admirer of jazz music. I wouldn't say that I have strong roots in jazz music, you know. I think there's a certain trickle-down effect that happens when you have people like Béla that you get to collaborate with who have strong ties to jazz and a background in studying the music and collaborating with jazz musicians like Chick Corea. You know, so certainly as a listener, I've enjoyed, you know, the music of people like Pat Metheny or Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, people like that. But I can't claim to be a jazz musician. You know, I'm somebody that just dabbles a little bit. And I think I think the mandolin is such a versatile instrument, you know, that you can use it a lot of different ways. I think one wonderful thing about growing up playing traditional bluegrass music, folk music on the instrument the way that I did is that there's such a strong foundation of improvisation, and it's very similar to jazz in that way, that there's all these kind of a catalog of songs and tunes that's shared among the community. So you might meet somebody who grew up playing bluegrass in, you know, Prague because they love the music, and I grew up in Tennessee and, you know, kind of the heart of Appalachia, where the music kind of came from, but those people are listening to and learning a lot of the same songs that I grew up learning and listening to because there's that shared catalog of music. Same as a lot of jazz musicians kind of learn their what we call standards, you know. So I think that spirit of improvisation and kind of interacting with musicians kind of makes, you know, someone that comes from the jazz background or comes from a bluegrass background have a lot in common in that way.
In the 80s, I played with a lot of these great musicians. Tony Rice is gone, but all of the other people were still there. Sam Bush, Jerry Douglas, Stuart Duncan, so every few years I would make a bluegrass record. The first one was in 1988. It was called Drive, and it was all the best players of the time. But then I started the Flecktones and I left bluegrass completely. I was trying to establish that the banjo could exist outside of bluegrass, and that's when the Flecktones came and all the collaborations with Dave Matthews Band and things like that. But in 1998, I believe, I made an album called Bluegrass Sessions, and I brought all these same musicians back and I applied a lot of the things I had learned to jazz to these bluegrass compositions, expanded them more, and things I learned from musicians around the world I felt like I wanted to bring new ideas into bluegrass and change the formula a little bit. I also was able to bring in some heroes. Earl Scruggs played on that record. Vassar Clements, John Hartford. I know folks don't know these names, but they're heroes in that music. Some of the older generation had them play with these great powerhouse virtuoso musicians of this time. But then 23 years went by and I hadn't made a bluegrass record. I'd been doing all these other things, gone to Africa, collaborated with African musicians, playing with Zakir, Chick, all of these different things. And it started to feel like it was time to make a bluegrass record again. But Tony Rice wasn't playing anymore, and he was the guy that made me sound good, in my mind anyway. I was like, I can't do it if I can't get Tony Rice, but he was on the way. He wasn't going to be around much longer. He wasn't playing. So at a certain point, I just said, well, I'm just going to start playing with some different people and see what happens. And I started playing with some of the younger generation of bluegrass musicians, and I found that they made me play out, new things. That I was being a bit of I was being too rigid in my thinking, that I could only do it with these guys. I needed to open up to the new generation. And in those 23 years, these great younger musicians had grown into their maturity and were bringing wonderful things to the music. So I started recording a few songs with some of these musicians, and then I started thinking, I haven't made a record in 23 years. Why don't I record with my old guys too? And so I brought them in and we did some tracks and they were great. And then I started thinking, well, who else can I, and different people that I'd never gotten to work with or people that I'd loved through my whole career from bluegrass. And I started bringing in different people until it became a double album and very much of a community record, celebrating the great instrumentalists of bluegrass music. But we weren't jamming on traditional stuff. Every song was a brand new song that I'd written, carefully cast with the musicians I wanted for that record. And in a way, that's kind of like My Spanish Heart, because there's all kinds of different bands on that record, and it's a 4-album set, if I remember right. And that would be a double CD, or might even fit on one, But after that, I was like, well, I think I'm going to go out and do some touring. Now, who should I go out with? I thought, well, I can go out with anybody. I can do all kinds of tours. So we did a tour with, I call them the old guys that are my age: Sam Bush, Jerry Douglas, Stuart Duncan, Brian Sutton, who's with us tonight, and Mark Schatz. Oh, no, this was with Edgar Meyer, because he now is a huge bluegrass fan and wanted to be there, part of it too. So, and we had a great tour, but then I also did some touring with some of the younger people. Sierra Hull, who's a fantastic mandolin player, and I did some, and Brian Sutton, who's in both groups, and this fiddler, blind fiddler named Michael Cleveland, who is just blowing the scene apart. Yeah, he's the star of bluegrass music right now. Everybody thinks he's the best because he is. And everyone thought he could only play traditional. But he wanted to be stretched. He wanted to do some new things. He didn't want to be typecast as somebody that only did one thing. And he's very capable. But even when he does something modern, he does it with the old sound that we talked about, Tony Rice also having a way of making new things sound traditional and connected to the tradition. And then the other people are Mark Schatz, who's a bass player that I first met in Boston in the 70s, and we've been playing together on and off ever since. And the other is Justin Moses, who is a great dobro player, but he also plays banjo, he also plays fiddle, so we have double banjo, double fiddle, dobro, and he's also a great singer. So he rounds the group out. There's 6 of us. And it's become the main lineup. Every once in a while someone can't do a tour and I bring someone in and it's like, this is not the same. The chemistry is very special with this group. And now we've been playing this whole tour. It's just going to the moon. The last couple of nights have just been ridiculous. It's like a jazz band that plays the last night at the jazz club, the late set, and they're just trying stuff and everybody's exploding and getting inspired and they're loose. And the music is so easy. The music that used to be so hard has now become nothing to play. So now it's time to express and try stuff. So it's a lovely moment to be coming here and playing in Croatia. banjo isn't really taught, and there aren't too many people that are interested. There are a few people that are doing it and learning how to do it. There's one really good guy who plays with Bill Evans sometimes named Ryan Cavanaugh, who's a young guy who's coming up. There's another guy named Carson Moore who comes to my banjo camp who's been learning a lot from Mike Stern. They haven't established themselves yet in the jazz world, but they have the ability. But they're the only ones I can think of. I hope I'm not forgetting somebody that will be insulted, because there probably is some other people I'm not thinking of. But those are two bright lights, and they're basically taking what I've done and pushing it to the next level, which is going to be very exciting for me to see. I might be jealous, but I can take it. I think it's good for the banjo, and I love to hear new ideas and new things that are happening. I fell in love with George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue when I was a child, and I always wanted to learn the piano part on the banjo. And so during the pandemic, suddenly I had the time. And so I got the score and I started learning a measure at a time, trying to figure out how can I do this, how can I do that, what's possible, what do I have to leave out, does it work? And I spent a good year working on this manuscript till I got the banjo part. I could approximate the piano part in a pretty reasonable way, pretty good. And so I decided to record it with symphony. So now this year I'm performing Rhapsody in Blue with symphonies around the United States. And then I also did a bluegrass version of it. I taught it to these guys, and Rhapsody in Bluegrass. And it's really fun, and it's surprising, because it was like a terrible idea or a great idea. You don't know till you do it. But I think the musicians made it happen. So that's my latest release. It just came out on the 100th anniversary of Rhapsody in Blue, which was February 12th, 1924. And so I'm really proud of it. It was a high jump, and a lot of new techniques had to be learned and created on the banjo to make it happen. But I love it. I love getting to do it. And we're going to get to do it in Carnegie Hall in May with the orchestra. I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it with the bluegrass band, and then I'm going to have Zakir, Bruce Hornsby, and Annette Cohen are going to come and guest with us. So it's going to be a really fun night. It's very interesting coming over and playing this music in these different countries, because every country is a different story. When we play in the UK or Ireland or Scotland, they kind of know what bluegrass is, and they even know who all these musicians are. Every one of them has their own bands, and they're all stars in their own rights, and they go, wow, all those guys are playing together, I got to go see that. But then you come to some of the other countries, and they don't know, they probably don't know who I am, they just know, great bluegrass musicians, top band, Grammys, and the number of Grammys must be good. I like bluegrass, I want to see what this is. And then they come and they're like, what just happened? It's really exciting. But then when we got back to the Czech Republic, that's a place that loves bluegrass, and they play banjos, they build instruments there. There's a great community of musicians. So that felt like they were so excited to see a band of this caliber coming over, because it's very expensive to bring musicians over from the United States, so most people can't pull it off. When you work this hard, because we're working every night, 2 shows the last night, 2 nights, we did 2 shows every day for different audiences, so that's nice. But mostly it felt to me like it would be an honor to bring this caliber of bluegrass over here and show it to people, because I don't think they get to hear it, except on records, and they have to know what records to get.